All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I have Pamela Morgan of Empowered Law on. And we met really briefly when I was speaking at the Texas Bitcoin conference. And I started watching what she was doing and I got really interested. And now I would like to share her with all of you and have her tell you a little bit. Pamela, why don't you tell us what got you engaged with Bitcoin? What excites you about Bitcoin? How did you first get involved? That's where I like to start.
Excellent. Well, first of all, I want to say thanks so much for having me on the show. I'm really, really excited to be here talking with you. And I am really, really excited about Bitcoin for a lot of reasons. I first discovered Bitcoin only back in November of 2013, so not that long ago. I was speaking at a conference in Athens, Greece, actually, about entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship for persons with disabilities. And I'm sure your audience knows the now infamous talk. Andreas Antonopoulos gave a talk it was the Disrupt conference. And I was in the audience, and I had never heard of Bitcoin. I didn't know anything about it. And so when he was speaking, I was really inspired by the disruptive nature of it. I've always been interested in social justice issues and equality and fairness, and I see Bitcoin as a tool for kind of community justice, distributed justice sorts of systems. So when I learned about Bitcoin, I immediately started thinking, oh, well, how can we use this technology to impact the law and make it more accessible and more transparent and reduce risk and kind of empower people and individuals instead of relying on big systems. And so that's what really inspired me, and that's the basis of most of my work.
Fabulous. So tell me, how did you acquire your first Bitcoin?
How did I acquire I earned it. Yeah, I earned it. Yeah, I started working. I started doing law practice for Bitcoin. Yeah.
Fabulous.
And it was great, and I like to share with friends that are kind of considering, well, maybe I should collect Bitcoin, or maybe I should accept it, or maybe I shouldn't, and they're kind of on the edge. And I explain to them that my Bitcoin clients typically pay me within 30 minutes, not 30 days, not 60 days or 90 days. I don't have to send an invoice in paper. I don't have to take any checks to the bank. I don't have to do any of that. I'm paid immediately. The Bitcoin is in my wallet, and it's ready to go. A couple confirmations. It's faster, more efficient, and it's easier for everyone. So I earn most of my income in Bitcoin now.
Fabulous. And there's no chargebacks, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely. You know what? I just posted a guide on our website, academy.midasmarny.com, about how we now give every person who signs up onto our newsletter 0.01 cent, so 1 cent in Bitcoin. Because a lot of people have never even had the experience of having Bitcoin, and what I find, and I'm sure you've had this too, is that the best way to really get involved with Bitcoin is to actually just have some. And
absolutely.
You get it, right? It's not that like ethereal thing out there that, it's all techno, where it's like, it's not that hard. It's kind of easy.
It is kind of easy, and it's kind of fun, and it's also kind of empowering. Like, you're like, oh, I just sent money, and I just clicked it on my phone, or I did it on my computer. It's nice to not have to go through a third party. It's nice to not have to request from the bank, pretty please, can I have my money, or can I transfer it to someone else? And that's one of the things I love about Bitcoin, is the empowering nature of it.
Absolutely. I recently got caught up in that whole kind of kicking out of all the small businesses with HSBC.
Yeah.
Because I'm actually Canadian, right? So I needed a bank that was global.
Yep.
And so, when I travel around, I want a bank that I can access anywhere, anytime. And
imagine that.
That bank at the time was HSBC before I learned about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And so in their, kicking out of all of the people, they actually, just stopped our accounts. They stopped my account December 23rd.
Oh, that was nice.
They did not tell me that they were going to shut down my account. Mm-hmm. Apparently, they had sent me a letter. I never received any letter. So not only did it ruin our Christmas, because we didn't have the money coming in that the money was stuck in a closed account, right?
Right. Right.
So it ruined our Christmas, it ruined our New Year's, and I was not a happy camper. And then when I started looking for another bank, and it was funny, I was sitting across the table, like right around, it was January 4th, actually, that I really got involved with Bitcoin again, or rather, for the first time, really got involved. And I was sitting across from the bank teller, and she was telling me, oh, when your son turns 14 years old, he can have a bank account. And I'm like, he's got a Bitcoin account. Why does he need a bank account?
Exactly. Exactly.
And I'm like, I would not even have a bank account if I didn't have to. And hopefully someday that'll be.
Yeah.
So, I know that I started to read that article. I haven't finished it because I've got so much stuff going on.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that multi-sig article that you wrote, because I found that fascinating. I think that that's really important for people to understand. And so just kind of give your view about that, because I thought that that was really intriguing.
Well, thank you. So the multi-signature article is based upon the idea that in traditional corporations and traditional corporate governance, when corporations have bank accounts, typically they don't put all of the money with just one person. So usually there's not just one signer on a corporate account. So banks actually provide a kind of a service that goes along with holding the account. They make funds available if someone becomes unavailable through some misfortune or death or whatever happens. It also, the multi-signature option in Bitcoin, is everyone familiar with Bitcoin, multi-sig, or should I kind of go over that?
Yeah, why don't you? Because a lot of I have my audience, I've got about 11,000 followers across all social networks. So it's a huge audience, right?
Oh, great.
But I've also got a lot of Bitcoin people. And so there's varying degrees. So let's start with, what is multi-sig?
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. So a multi-signature account is basically where you have M of N signatures to release funds. So in a typical, outside of the Bitcoin realm, you might have a capital account where you would have the CEO, the CFO, and maybe one other person as authorized signers on the account. And any check written would require 2 signatures to be valid. That happens in the traditional banking world. We can do that exact same thing with Bitcoin using multi-signature technology. And it's quick, it's easy, it's free, all things that I like, and are all part of the Bitcoin community. So there is a number of different services. There's a number of different wallets that are being developed right now. It's a newer technology, but I use Coinbin, and it will allow, it's COINB.IN, and it will allow you to create multi-signature addresses, and you can create a number of different multi-signature addresses, and then you use it just like a typical Bitcoin address. So if I said, hey, Monty, I want to send you, 3 Bitcoin, I could send it to your normal Bitcoin address, which would begin with a 1. Or I could send it to a multi-signature address in the same exact way, seamless, but it begins with a 3. Exactly. And that doesn't necessarily mean that there are 3 signatures required. The 3 is just the designation of what that address is and what it means. So it's very quick and easy to set up. So we could actually create a multi-signature address right here. We could say there would be 2 of 2 signatures required to release funds, and then both of us would have to sign each transaction. Why is that great? Well, for one, you don't have an issue with one person running off with all the money. So this is really good, right? This is really good for, for custodial accounts, but also if, God forbid, someone gets hacked, right? I mean, if your system is compromised and you have the only keys, then someone has all the Bitcoin, where the likelihood of both you and I being compromised and the person being able to put those 2 things together are far less. Then when you combine that with, say, cold storage and offline private key generation and those sorts of things, you really increase your security, and you do it very inexpensively and very easily. So I actually have a manual that I just finished writing that goes along with that article to help people. It's a step-by-step manual.
Well, I'm going to have to talk to you about that manual because on our website we have, that's what we do. We produce guides. We would
Fantastic.
love to have your guide on academy.midasmarney.com. I'm actually working with MSB Compliance right now
Mm,
about producing a guide for businesses that want to be in the Bitcoin arena.
yeah.
You need to have compliance. So they need to understand if they're doing business in the United States, what sort of compliance they have. So we're working on that too. And I hope to gather a whole bunch of these brilliant minds like yourself, right? And so that we can really educate the public and help them understand, what do we need to do in order to protect ourselves? Because I think, like you said, right? With Bitcoin, we're used to kind of putting all of the responsibility off onto somebody else,
Hmm.
and these days we're beginning to understand that maybe that's not a good idea. Maybe we should trust ourselves more
Yeah.
than we can trust somebody else. But the thing is that now we need to step up and take responsibility, right?
Yeah.
And what are our responsibilities, especially, when I was reading that document, the fiduciary's responsibilities of running a company, right?
Sure.
We need to make sure that we're in a situation where somebody can't run off with all of the funds. And
Right.
so I am so grateful for people like yourself and the guys at MSB Compliance and people that can really help everybody out there to understand, what do I need to do now in order to protect myself and to protect my company.
Well, and I think an important point that goes along with what you just said is that for so long we've put our trust in other people. And when we're doing that, we have this illusion that what they're doing is so valuable and so complex and it's, well beyond what we could do and it's going to take all of this time and all of this effort. And in reality, it doesn't take that much work. It's pretty simple. Once you sit down, maybe an hour, you can figure this out. And with great guides and with great help and looking to, industry leaders, there are so many tools out there that are available, especially in the Bitcoin arena. That's one of the things I really like about this community is we're open source. We want everyone to succeed. And again, that's something I really appreciate about this community, but it's not that complex. We think it is because we put these beliefs into all of these other people and all of these other systems and ask them to handle our banking for us. But like you said, Marnie, at any time, someone, bank, if they're holding your funds, a custodial account, right? They're holding your funds, they can freeze them. And all of a sudden,
Like they did to me
exactly,
when we
exactly.
closed it. It's like, oh, we'll send you a check. Okay. But it's Christmas and everybody's sending their stuff through the thing. And when am I going to get this check? Where's
Right.
my Christmas presents for my child?
And why would you as a bank need to send me a check?
Yes.
You just give me access to my account? It seems odd, right?
Crazy.
Yeah. So, again, that's one of the things I really like about Bitcoin is that it's much easier than what people think. Once you get into it and really, start looking at the tools that are out there, I think that there are so many people that are dedicated to improving the space that, making Bitcoin accessible. That, it's just a matter of sitting down and wanting to do it. And I think once you get into it, once you realize what this tool can bring, it's not just currency. It's voting, it's law, it's democratizing all processes. When I say democratizing, I don't necessarily mean majority rules. I mean giving us an opportunity to choose our own path, to choose how we want things. This is the first time that we've actually been able to have a peer-to-peer decentralized network. This is the first time in history, as far as I'm concerned, that we've actually been able to have the tools and the desire to not have one person or one entity in charge. And I feel like there's so many exciting opportunities that are out there that we have no idea what's going to come. But I'm really, really excited about the future and Bitcoin 2.0 and smart contracts and all of those other business tools.
Yeah, that's great. So tell me, what any parting words do you have for anybody watching the show today?
My parting words would be, I think that you should think about systems and think about what you're doing and why you're doing it and how Bitcoin can help streamline those processes. I think that Bitcoin is a tool that we can share with the world, with the 6 billion who don't have banking, with our neighbors, with our friends. And I think, not to sound evangelistic, but, I think that it's this great gift that we can share. I really do. I think it's this great gift that we can share, and people can get as involved as they want to be. Many times people, when they're first exposed to Bitcoin, they go, oh yeah, okay, no, and then they come back to it later. And I think that the more that we talk about Bitcoin, and the more that we can show people that it's easy and how it can affect their lives and how it can empower them, I think that we'll see everything change for the better.
Absolutely. And I'm all about practical application, right?
Yeah.
Like, so here's the thing that I've kind of seen in Bitcoin is that you've got all these techs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in the computer industry for 30 years, and I know the techs, and I used to program C++ programming language, all that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there's these techs who aren't really good at communicating, right? They're very techy, they're very intelligent, but they can't bridge that gap. And they've been trying to for a long time with Bitcoin, but they explain it in such a complex way that the mainstream doesn't really get it. So people like you and I, right, are kind of those conduits to help people bridge that gap to say, okay, I don't necessarily have to know how electricity works in order to use it, right?
Exactly.
I just click a down switch and it works.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And it's the same thing. I don't need to know, like I have an electric car now. I don't need to know how that engine does the beautiful thing that it does. Like, it's so weird driving it because I can't really tell when my gas is really my energy is empty, because if I go down a hill, I have more energy. It's always fluctuating, right? I have no idea how that happens. I'm just grateful that it happens, and I know that if I'm low, or if I slow down and I go down a hill, I'll have enough to get where I'm going.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like that practicality of every day. So, and that's what I really liked about your articles. Practical. How do we actually make this work in our real world? Now we've kind of gone past that stage of theoretical, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the mainstream doesn't necessarily need to understand the theoretical unless they want to dive into it. Now we're in that place where we can, be the early adopters, and we can actually help them practically understand, okay, this is what we need to do to get our job done, especially entrepreneurs. You know as well as I do, entrepreneurs are just like, I just want to know how to make money.
Right.
I don't care about all the other stuff. As long as you guys know that stuff works, I just want to make sure that I can run my business, I can run it efficiently, I'm doing it, and I'm doing it legally, I'm doing all the right stuff. Mm-hmm. That's what I want to know.
Yeah. And that's what I'm focusing on now. That's what's taking up almost all of my time. I teach college as well, and I work with the Bitcoin University Project with Will Pangman, and that's actually sponsored by the Bitcoin Foundation, among other sponsors. And so it's kind of parallel. We're working with educating people, and then also I'm working with educating entrepreneurs. How do we use, and that's what my articles stem from, is questions about, okay, I have this client who needs to institute multi-signature. Let's talk about why you'd want to do that. Let's talk about what contexts are ideal to implement that, and how is this going to work for you? What are the pros? What are the cons? And that's what we do every day. When we're giving advice to entrepreneurs. I love that the Bitcoin space is ready for entrepreneurs, and I think this is one of the only sectors that's growing in the U.S. economy, right?
Actually, there's just recently I read that it was Cointerra in Austin, which had the highest growth of all startups in the United States, or something like that. I didn't actually look it up, but it was significant. I'm like, really?
Yeah, it's quite remarkable. Before I got into Bitcoin, I was working in the entrepreneurship space and helping people develop an entrepreneurial mindset. And so going from that more general area where I'm helping people do all sorts of businesses to a more focused area with Bitcoin, it's extraordinary how many startups are happening in this space. Yeah, and it's exciting. I mean, it's exciting to hear every day, oh, this person's doing this idea, or they're taking this and going there. It's really rejuvenating. I think it's yeah, I think it's really exciting to
I
be a part of
haven't
it.
been this exciting since 93, 94, when we first were allowed on the internet. Like, not just through, CompuServe or AOL or, whatever Prodigy service we went through, but
Yeah.
actually right down on the internet. It was like, you know, that is how I feel again right now. I feel that exact same dynamics going on, and that's why I'm so excited. It's
Yeah.
like, it's not like this is something new for us who have seen it before. We
Hmm.
understand the evolution of technology, right? And that's why all of us techies are going, hey, wait, you guys, you got to pay attention here. This
Right.
is big. This is
Yeah.
really, really big. But it's the beautiful thing, and this is what I love about it, just like you said, with being able to empower the world. Yes, the internet definitely empowered the world, but to empower people financially, to have that separation of, government and control of your money versus government, and church, right?
Yeah.
This is really fundamentally going to change the dynamics of wealth in the world, where I think that a lot more people are going to be less abused because they're more in power of their own financial wealth.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think that our financial system in the U.S. is reflective of what's happening throughout the world, and there are a lot of people who get robbed in the U.S., and there's a lot of people that have their money taken from them forcibly or otherwise all across the world. Particularly, as we talk about women's issues, this is a huge issue for women. All around the world is not only controlling their own freedom, but controlling the finances and empowering them to be able to make decisions on their own and not be reliant upon other people. And I think Bitcoin is an incredible tool that's going to empower people all around the world, but especially women. And I think it's going to give them much more freedom than what they've seen in the past. I'm excited to see that.
And I am so proud that you are the first woman that I've interviewed, because you are definitely a shining star in the Bitcoin world. And I hope that, you get more people talking to you as a result of being on our show today.
Thank
And
you so much, Marnie.
I am definitely going to be paying attention to what you're doing. Like I said, we'd love to have your guide on our academy as well.
Excellent.
And, let's all work together and make this happen.
Excellent. Just so you know, are you going to be at Bitcoin in the Beltway? I'm
No,
speaking
I'm
there. Okay, I'm
not.
speaking there next week in DC.
I would love to, but unfortunately, I've got other things going on. I'm speaking here at the International Money Transfer Conference.
Oh, fantastic.
So that's going to be fascinating because I get to sit down with all of those, the compliance guys again. And, I know a lot of people are like, you shouldn't even talk to those guys. But really, the thing is, you got to understand they have this point of view, right? And
Hmm.
then the libertarian people have this point of view, and you can't just have your little point of view and think you can exist in the world. You have to, and this is like what I see anyways for myself, is I need to see all the points of view so that I can talk to somebody at where they're listening, right? I need to
Yeah,
talk in a language that they understand. It's like the techs. They talk in their tech thing, and the mainstream has no flipping idea what they're talking about,
hmm,
right? I
yeah,
need to be able to bridge that gap. So I need to be able to talk to everybody across all the board so that then I can say, this is the way they believe and the way that they think. And now I need to translate that into helping you understand that this is why they think that way and this is what they're trying to achieve. They're not necessarily bad people. And maybe they're uneducated too. Maybe I need to help educate them, right?
sure.
So I'm really looking forward to that.
That sounds like it's going to be fantastic. I'm a huge fan of educating yourself and getting all of the information you can possibly get. And where things get scary is when people start shutting themselves off to other people's points of view.
Well, that's
because
even fundamentalism, right?
yeah, absolutely. And so whether you're talking about, understanding a regulator's perspective, it doesn't mean you have to adopt it. Simply because you understand it doesn't mean that you necessarily agree with it and you want to forward it. But the idea is once you have a good understanding of what that person's concerns are, in the law we call this interest-based bargaining. Have you ever heard of that before?
I haven't. So
Okay.
educate me.
So interest-based bargaining is basically, it's interest, interest based bargaining. And what it means is you go to the core of the issue.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times people think that what they want is X, but what they really want is Y. It's based upon fear, it's based upon some other thing, but they don't tell you. Like they don't say, my underlying issue is I'm afraid that if I adopt Bitcoin, my family will judge me. Or they don't tell you these underlying concerns.
And they may not know them.
And they may not know them. And so in order to get to those underlying concerns and really see, hey, is this valid? Is it not valid? Can I help you overcome it? Or maybe it's something that, can't be overcome. I don't know. Maybe you have a concern that, is a real valid concern and I should be considering it. And so the only way you get there is through dialogue. The only way you get there is through respectful dialogue with other people and really trying to listen and understand where they're coming from. And so when you're talking about interest-based bargaining, you're trying to figure out underlying what is it they're really saying without saying it. And is it something that you have an answer for? Is it something that you need to do more research on? Or is it like, oh yeah, Bitcoin didn't go bankrupt? Is it that sort of thing? Or is it something that really has merit? And I don't think that there's ever fear in learning a new perspective or trying to understand, someone else's point of view. Again, I think the fear comes in, I think the danger zone comes in when we shut ourselves off from that and say, oh, absolutely not, I'm not going to talk to this person because they're wrong or because I don't agree with them on every other point that they make. So I really love the idea that you're going and you're going to, get the knowledge from them and you're going to share knowledge with them and it's going to be a reciprocal dialogue. I think that that's so important and I'm so glad that you're doing that.
Absolutely. I'm excited. Good. Well, I'm sure we'll probably have you on the show again as everything evolves over time, and I really appreciate your time today. It was fabulous having you on the show.
Thank you, Marnie. I've really enjoyed it. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely.